Today's guest is a never-has-been opera singer turned online marketing strategist and communication coach. Gina Molinari uses her background of performance skills, marketing, and emotional intelligence to coach others into clearly and confidently marketing themselves and their business in a way that feels good and creates consistent results and visibility in their business. Gina also has her own podcast called The Big Reveal. Please welcome to today's show, Gina Molinari.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We have to start with the obvious question. What is a never-has-been opera singer?
It is, well, you call somebody who hasn't been in the industry for a while a has-been, right? So I am a never has-been simply because I did my undergraduate as a opera singer and I had every intention of being a professional performer, but I had such terrible performance anxiety that I never actually pursued it. So that's a lot of why I get into public speaking coaching and things, is because I so greatly understand that level of performance anxiety that many people have to stand in front of a room. And I mean, if I can sing in front of people, which I hated doing, but I translated those skills into public speaking, and I really found that it was a way to connect with people, because in classical music, you're not speaking in English. Like, you have to find other ways to connect to people. So you have to be engaging. You have to, really get that message across with your voice in some way. And being able to translate those sorts of skills to speaking was much more comfortable for me, and I can teach other people to do that same thing. So it's really, really interesting to see how that moves over into that space.
This whole idea of performance anxiety and confidence go so closely in hand.
Yes, very much.
Because I was a professional dancer for many years.
Oh, wow.
And there was people that auditioned really well and they were kind of just okay afterwards. And people who auditioned terribly, just like you, from the anxiety, who would have been brilliant, could they only get over their own nerves.
Yeah.
What is the greatest lesson you would think that you didn't get over during your audition times or your never has been opera times that you bring now into people who suffer greatly from anxiety?
So probably the biggest catalyst for everything that's happened since then, even I went to a school called Westminster Choir College, which is a very, very small conservatory-like college, 500 undergrads and grads, super small. And I took a year off, actually was working in the Office of Admission as an employee, and I took a year to just keep practicing my voice and learning and, building my skills. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to audition for the grad program, and then, tuition remission. Fantastic. I'm going to get like a free grad degree. It's going to be great. And I didn't get into the program. So the place that trained me didn't want me. And that broke me. That was the day that the dream that I had about being a performer died, because how can I possibly go anywhere else if the people who trained me don't even want me? There's not even another option. So the lesson at the time, the story I sort of told myself was that this is not for me, and this is not something that I'm ready to pursue. And that it was one of those auditions where it was the best I know I could have done that day. It wasn't perfect, but I truly knew I put my best foot forward. So there was nothing else I could have done, and yet this was still the result. So in hindsight, though, of course, I see that as, just one opportunity of somebody saying no, whereas I could have shifted and gone somewhere else and tried that differently. And I've done that as an entrepreneur many times since, because of course there's a lot of rejection with that too. But the growth that I've had to have in order to accept that rejection as an entrepreneur and not as a performer, I didn't have that sort of intelligence then for myself.
Yeah, this is exactly the next question I was going to ask you, Gina, because as a dancer too, so many no's. At least 50 to 75 for every one yes.
Yes.
What do you teach entrepreneurs? How do you teach resilience and grit when often what they do is kind of a piece of who they are? When you're selling yourself as your own business, how do you help people separate the rejection of not right moment, right place, right time with who they are as an individual?
Yeah, so there's two things that really come to mind, and my whole career now as a result has kind of been one instance of that. So from there, I went to grad school to get my master's in arts administration. So I said I'll be in the business around the arts, and that didn't pan out, but that's where I fell in love with marketing. And then I got into blog writing and social media strategy and like all of these other different things that I had a lot of guilt and shame around, feeling like they were lateral moves. There was no growth in that, and feeling that way just continue to perpetuate that idea that I'm not successful, that I'm not growing, that I'm not getting better. I'm just wasting my time. I'm spinning my wheels. So now, though, once I had the realization, and remember exactly when. I think it was when I was going through leadership training where we focus a lot on limiting beliefs. But I believe I had the realization that what music was about for me was always that connection, that message, that inspiration that you can create. Because my favorite thing as a performer, and this has always been true, even with the anxiety, is singing at a funeral and being up in the balcony and contributing. It's not about me. There's no eyes on me, but everybody's sobbing because there's something about my voice that just breaks their heart open. And how many times, even at a funeral, are you, trying to be stoic and keep it together? What men are trying to be a man and, man up or whatever that story is that they have. But I break them open, and having that power over somebody else with my voice, realizing that that's really what that whole journey was about. All of the, blog writing is language, social media strategy is language, marketing is language, seeing all of that as tools that I was actually building up to this confident communication coaching, really being able to shift that mindset and saying, okay, these were lateral movements, but ultimately I was really building a toolbox. So that's the first thing, is like really seeing that failing consistently fast is market research for myself of what doesn't work. It's data. It's, okay, now I know one less thing that doesn't work for me that I don't want to pursue, but I couldn't have known that if I didn't try it. And I didn't see it that way in the moment, but now I can.
Yeah, I agree with you that failure is data or data. Yeah. I still can't remember, is that in English or the American pronunciation? And there's no research in when things go perfectly.
No.
But yet it's easy for us to say now. But what do you say to someone, because you had such performance anxiety, and that's why you
still do when it's singing. Still do, honestly. Yeah.
What do you think that is about? Why have you been able to overcome the anxiety of communicating in different ways in big groups?
I know.
But is it because you care? I mean, you care about all that you do.
I do.
I'm curious what that one little unspoken thing is about singing that heightens that anxiety to such a level.
So I haven't been able to get 100% to the crux of it, but the closest I've come so far is when you breathe as an opera singer, it is a very low belly breath. You have to connect so deep. I mean, you think about it, back in the day, there was no amplification, no microphones. A singer had to carry over an 80-piece orchestra. You have to sing in a very, very different way in order to be your own amplification, which means you're very connected to your body. And I have spent a very long time, up until only the past year or two, being very uncomfortable in my body. So for all eyes to be on me, to have a lot of self-consciousness about my physical self, to feel very vulnerable, when people tell you to calm down, they're telling you to take a deep breath, connect to your body again. That's the very thing I'm trying not to do. So to feel that on display with something that I'm trying so technically to be perfect. And that was really the focus, was that I wanted so badly to be technically proficient. I wanted it to be exactly on tune. Like, I never wanted anybody to tell me I was flat or sharp or any of that, especially as a soprano. Like, we got reputations for being shrill. I didn't want any of that. But that prevented me from really performing and being in the moment and watching. I always say I'm a great singer. I am a terrible performer. You watch me, I'm like a ventriloquist dummy. Like, my mouth is flapping, but I'm not doing anything. But it sounds beautiful and it sounds really expressive. So that's the closest I've come, is this idea that like connecting so deeply to my breath was just so vulnerable, and I wasn't ready to do that yet. But having done the work that I have now it's not so scary. And it's also my native language now, which helps. And it's my message too. Singing somebody else's song is not necessarily my message. I can connect to it, but there's only so much of that I can do.
And I wonder if, there are things I often say, don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence. But maybe in the opera world, you're striving for that perfect note. Mm-hmm. So how is it possible to hold that thought of the perfection and yet be authentic and vulnerable in the same moment? I could see why there is such a conflict there.
Yeah, it was... And I knew that. Logically, I knew that there was no such thing as perfection in an artistic way, especially with music. And as a dancer, I'm sure you understand it too. You do the best that you can given the circumstances of the day. But I could not shake the actual execution of that idea. I could not shake that I had to be perfect. I had to sound perfect. Obviously not perform perfectly. I never quite got there. But yeah, and that's something that I want to bring into my speaking. I have this vision of when I do my keynotes, when you come out to music on the stage, I want to sing mine. I want to sing mine because, number one, I still love to sing, even though it's scary for me, but it's getting easier. But also, I feel like it's important for me to be the example of me breaking through my fears in front of you before I teach you how important it is to do that. And I will just continue to do that until it's I don't know that I'll let that fear or level go away, truthfully, but I think it's important that I continue to try until it diminishes enough that I can do it without that debilitating sort of fear.
I think that image is so powerful because
Thank
I
you.
often say you learn it to teach it, you live it to preach it.
Oh, yes.
And if you can, in front of the people that you're inspiring, remind them that you are still in that shoe of feeling terrified.
Very much.
Because I know as leaders, sometimes we get so far ahead of the people we're trying to inspire that we forget what it feels like to really be in that place
Yeah.
of not knowing and uncertainty and a lack of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving all your training and life lessons now into this area of confidence, which I think I believe it's the difference between people that do and people that don't. It's very little to do with talent and skill because that can all be learned. What are some of the skills you have learned from your performance background that you share with the people that you work with in entrepreneurship and speaking and communication?
That consistency is the very first thing, that you got to take action in order to try anything to see how well you can actually fail at it or succeed at it. You have no information to go off of if you just stay still. So that's the very, very first thing. The next thing that I really like to coach people into is, crutches get a bad rap. Don't use a crutch. You really want to stay away from having a crutch or something. You want to be able to step into this place and be powerful and on display and all of that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a crutch if that's what you need to just get over the hump of that debilitating level of anxiety.
Can you give me an example? I totally agree with you,
Yeah.
Gina. Can you give me an example of what a crutch would be?
Yeah. So, I'm thinking about people who want to use like a handheld mic because it's just something to hold on to feel a little safe. Somebody standing behind a podium. I do not believe in standing behind podiums. I think it closes you off. But if it makes you feel safe for the first time that you're doing a really major talk in front of somebody, great, do that. The only caveat is that you can't continue to lean on that crutch because eventually then that's just something that's going to continue to debilitate your growth. So if you have these little ways that you can give yourself a little bit of comfort, by all means use them, but you have to learn that then you have to move away from them once you reach another level of confidence for yourself.
And that's so refreshing to hear. I feel like it's like a bridge.
Yeah,
And we're told there's so many bumper stickers. Take the leap and you'll earn your wings on the way down. Yeah, maybe not. So maybe that crutch is a little bit of a softer landing.
I'll just bring a backpack just in case. I'm trying on the way down and I can experiment with it, but sometimes, it's nice to have a little bit. And that's not to say that you're expecting to fail, right? But you have to give yourself the opportunity to really try something to even see where maybe you're a little more confident than you realize. The second I remember, this is bringing me back. So I remember singing, somebody had hired me or referred me to an opportunity to sing at like Mother's Day at a macaroni grill, which is like an Olive Garden, right? So they wanted me to be a singer to go around the room and sing at these tables for tips or something, just to kind of give ambiance. And I was terrified to do it. And I'm just standing there in the middle of the restaurant going, do I just start? What do I do? I don't understand this premise. And I just had to ask somebody, can you just give me somebody's birthday at a table somewhere just to break the ice for me? And once I did that, then I was okay to kind of start in the middle of nothing, in the middle of no prompting at all. But I had to have somebody give me something to work with to get started. And that's what it often takes, is just give them something to get started. And then maybe, even though it's still scary, okay, you broke the ice with it and you're okay.
Talking about that, if someone's listening right now, because I know so many listeners that have so much they want to share with the world and great gifts, and they don't know where to start.
Yeah.
When it comes to confidence, can you give them like maybe 1 or 2 steps, a place to start?
So the first thing to be clear on is that confidence does not have to look like what it looks like for you or I. That your confidence is going to look different than everybody else's because you're you. You're an introvert, you're an extrovert, you're artistic, you're analytical. Like it's just going to look very different, and being okay that that's your flavor of it. So being clear that whatever sort of comes up for you and you want to try, give it a shot, but give it a shot in earnest. So when it comes to speaking, especially, just getting so super clear on the intention. Why are you here? What are you talking about? What is the sort of thesis statement you want to share? And I always compare it to, like, I don't know if you had this in the UK in high school, but we had to write, these persuasive essays. You have your introduction paragraph, your thesis statement, 3 paragraphs to support your idea, and then your conclusion. What is your thesis statement of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a blog post, if it's a Facebook Live, if it's a speech, if it's your book? What is it you want people to walk away with? Because the more clear you are on that, you have a home base to always come back to no matter what happens. And that is, again, just like a sort of crutch for you. It's a sort of safety net of no matter what happens, no matter if you lose your place, you stumble over your words, you know that this is the idea you're always going to come back to.
You mentioned Facebook and social media.
Yes.
And now it's not only enough to share your voice. Everyone's telling us the importance of video.
Show your face. Yes,
Show
absolutely.
your face. So now, so many entrepreneurs, solopreneurs want to get their message out there, but they will not get in front of the camera. And we know it's good for our business. Any tips on just how to get imperfectly in front of this camera and connect with the people that you've been wanting to inspire?
So there is a function on Facebook Live where you can do only me instead of friends or public. So if that's what it takes to get started and just kind of get used to how the logistics of it work, great. Otherwise, I mean, there's people like me to support you. I have a whole group course around this idea of just learning the basics of empowering yourself with communication and sort of just tweaking the little things. And all the homework is required to be on Facebook Live. And it's because of that, practice introducing yourself every single time you introduce yourself anywhere. And always remember to introduce yourself on every Facebook Live because, maybe somebody tuning in for the first time. But I mean, you just have to do it. And I know it's not comfortable for a lot of people, but how are you ever going to get comfortable if you don't start somewhere? And when you watch it back, I mean, I have so many students who say they watch it back and they're like, oh, well, that's not as bad as I thought. No, it's not. Exactly. Just got to do it to know that. Otherwise, you're just going to have all these fantasies in your head about how terrible you are and how there's a booger hating out of your nose or whatever it is. There's not always something horrible going to happen. And getting comfortable when things do become a mistake. I have made so many mistakes on Facebook Live or on a stage or something like that. And the difference between somebody like me doing it and somebody who is more of a beginner and still working through that confidence thing is that I roll with it. I make fun of myself. And so you forget about it just as quickly as I did it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean perfection. And that's, we're coming back to this idea again. There's no such thing as perfection when you're in this live space.
I know for me, anytime I've made a mistake on stage, it's actually endeared me to the audience.
Yes, exactly.
It's not the mistake, it's how do you react to that.
Exactly.
With that, when you're having people share their message, and I think it's getting really clearer on what their message is, how do you help people dial into what, it sounds so trite, but what's important to them? Because we're told so many things that should be important to us.
Yeah.
How do you help people really tune into their own message and having the confidence to trust their inner voice?
Yeah, so there's this thing that Lewis Howes does at the end of his podcast interviews. He asks them for the 3 truths. If everything that you had was taken away, all the books, all the podcast videos, whatever it is, what are the 3 things that you would want to leave with the world? And so that's kind of what I ask. What is the one thing? If you could only pick one thing that you wanted to be known for, that you wanted to leave your wisdom of, whether it's your story or an actual nugget of teaching, what is that one thing? And it doesn't mean it can't evolve over time. In 20 years, maybe more work you've done, it kind of goes a different direction. But right now, what is the one thing that's so important to you? It's the one thing you would want to leave behind in this world. And that really gets people thinking. They often can't answer me very quickly the first time I ask that. But when they really think about it, they start to get closer to that idea of what's really important to them. No other opinions affecting it.
Yeah, talking about your opinion and what matters to you, there's so much content out there right now. There's so much, let me say, noise.
Yes, that's exactly the word I use.
Yeah. How does someone begin to connect and relate to the audience in a way that they can be heard, especially, and it might not happen right away, but a couple of things they could work on to just help raise up and be consistent and keep showing up and get above the noise?
Yeah, that clarity is definitely the first thing, because if they're not clear, they're just going to sound very vague, right? And it's going to sound like they're trying to appeal to everybody, which that definitely fades into that noise. But the second thing, and I believe is truly a superpower that I've cultivated, is vulnerability, because it makes you likable, it makes you relatable, it makes you really show people that they're not alone, that you can conquer things despite. I mean, I don't like sharing that I didn't get into the grad program and I got shut down, and I don't like telling that story, but I know it's important for people to understand that you can put so much effort into something and shift gears and still find success for yourself, and that it could have been the best thing that ever happened to you as a result. So I'm constantly sharing vulnerable things about myself as a way to connect to people and let them know that it's okay to share them, that the repercussions of that are far less than the impact that you could make.
I love that. And with that, the idea of sharing ourselves and being vulnerable, there's also a flip side, this word fear.
Yes.
False expectations appearing real.
Absolutely.
And I also think, fear is just excitement without the breath, like anxiety is.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
How do you help people get over this fear of judgment? because we're all going to be judged in some way. And it means you're being noticed. It means you're standing for something, but it's still not easy.
Yeah.
Any advice you give to the people listening who, again, are ready to like get on that Facebook Live or Insta Live, but they're just like, oh, what happens if I get judged and people don't like what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's this nursery rhyme I remember reading growing up, and it's, a father and his son walking their donkey, through the desert or whatever it is. And, at first people are walking by, oh, well, why aren't they riding on the donkey? They have it to ride. And so they both get on it. And then they pass two women, and the two women are, oh, that poor donkey, it's too heavy for them. So the father gets off, and then two old men walk by, and, oh, why is he, the father's older. Why isn't he up on there? And so they switch. And then it's the father up on there and the son. Oh, how could they possibly? You're never going to please everybody. And if you're going to live your life just waiting for somebody else to tell you which direction to go, you're going to run out of people eventually and then stand still. Or the probably more likely option, you're just going to go nowhere. You're just going to do absolutely nothing because you're just going to spin in circles until you're waiting for the approval that's never going to come.
I think the more clear you get on what it is that you want to share with the world, the less you use the word care, but the less concern you have around other people's opinion with you, because you believe so strongly in your message, you're willing for the naysayers to step up.
Yeah.
With that comes success. And I love the fact you've said success is very much in our control. And I agree. Yet many of us are we're always searching for the next big thing, the right answer, the next secret to our success.
Yeah.
What do you believe that is a couple of things that we can do to start helping determine our own success and taking action?
Taking responsibility is the first thing. And that doesn't mean that things are your fault when they go wrong. That just means that you take that data of what happened and say, here was the role that I played in that. And one of the most obvious ways that I like to say that is, look at the relationships you've been in, maybe romantic relationships, and something that went wrong that maybe in the past you blamed them. Well, they cheated and this happened. What was your role in that relationship? What was your role that maybe led to the infidelity or the miscommunications or the lack of intimacy or something that had that? And again, it's not to say that it's your fault and blame yourself. It's not meant to beat yourself up, but just seeing things differently, starting to take that responsibility wherever you can. Because what I can say is that learning this level of consistency that it takes to really build my own success, I was not honest with myself about how much effort I was actually putting in. It felt like effort because I was busy or because my energy was exhausted by the end of the day. But the reality was, if I was really honest with myself, I was not taking as much action that actually moved the needle forward. I was just keeping myself busy in a way that made me feel as though I was doing something. But I had to take responsibility for that.
Let's talk a little bit more, because there's a big difference between being busy and being productive.
Huge.
Doing the things that really shift the needle.
Yes.
We are really great at being busy. How does someone notice when, like, this is busy work, but this really isn't moving me forward? Because we're really good at doing the small things. So it feels like we're moving ourselves forward.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on what you do too, right? But how do I want to say this?
Just say it.
I know. I'm thinking.
It's a thing we all need to know.
I know.
Right? Just
Yeah.
say it.
It's for me, the experience that I felt was that by the end of the day, I didn't have energy to even do the things I loved. And so if I was exhausted at the end of the day, odds were that I wasn't doing things that filled me up and therefore didn't matter. I was checking email. I was checking social media. I was, working with clients and not actually building the business. And I'm wondering why, I'm not getting leads or anything like that. Like, it's because I'm not putting in the effort for the things that actually move that needle. And if I ask myself the very blunt question of, what is this actually accomplishing, as opposed to, is this being checked off my to-do list, was a significant difference for me, because I'm one of those people who loves to make my to-do lists. I make my lists for lists. I love it. But the planning, and that was, again, like I said, I had to get honest with myself. I was doing a whole lot of planning and then rearranging the planning when I didn't ultimately do all the things I said I was going to do. But then I was exhausted and didn't actually do anything. So being able to ask myself, what is this really creating for myself? Is this actually doing something, or is this just something to wipe off my plate today?
I think it's also tapping into the feeling, like you said, like if I'm feeling depleted I'm not doing the things that I enjoy. Maybe there's the question of like, at the end of this day, the actions that I'm taking, are they bringing joy to my life, or are they sucking the joy out of me? And that could be another metric to use.
Yeah, and learning to delegate those things if it comes to that, right? And I know that money is a concern. Well, maybe I'm not ready financially to. Let me tell you, your peace of mind for that and finding somebody who's within your budget to start to support you is invaluable. And the first time I hired somebody, I was not ready for that, but when I did. Oh my God, it feels so good to just let that stuff out. And I didn't want to relinquish the control either. It was something I actually enjoyed doing, but it did. It was an energetic suck on me. And ultimately, I wasn't moving forward enough, especially since I was balancing it with a day job. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. And if I truly want to prioritize what I say I want to prioritize, I cannot do all the things.
That first time when you delegated to someone, because I think it's so hard.
Yes.
Because we want to do it our way. Yes. And then it's like, well, it's going to take more time to teach the person how to do it than do it myself.
Yes.
I've been there a million times. What was that feeling, or what was it that compelled you to say, look, I'm at a crossroads now. It's basically delegate or die. What was it that compelled you and made you take that hard action of actually delegating a part of your business?
Yeah, it was reaching too many of those days in a row where at the end of the day, I was just done. I didn't have anything left in me to do the things that I knew were so important. And I felt like I really was doing those things that were moving the needle forward, but I just ran out of time. And I am one of those entrepreneurs. I will not sacrifice my sleep because I am not productive. I am not nice if I do not get my sleep. So I knew I had to do something differently. And that's not my zone of genius, to do social media work or to do email marketing or any of that. I can do it and I can figure it out for myself if I really need to. And it's important, but it's not the area where I flourish most, and that's actually going to bring people in the door. And doing things like this is what lights me up. I can't make time for this if I'm too busy doing the busy work.
Gina, you've spoken kind of openly, like, you've kind of fast-tracked your business over the past couple of years. And we don't often talk about the struggles and the backstory.
Oh, let me tell you about that, please.
Well, pull in a comfy chair. What would you say, was it a mind shift? Was it a strategy shift that allowed you to create the income and the influence that you were desiring?
Yeah. So 4 years ago, I was actually living here in New York City, and I like to say I was fetal on the couch every day. I would curl up in the nook of the arm and watch TV, and I was just completely numb, not doing things I loved, spending a lot of money to live in New York, in a city I honestly didn't really want to be in. I love visiting here, but living here was very challenging for me, and I was just so unhappy with nearly every aspect of my life. And going through a leadership training where they started to go through that emotional intelligence work, that was my introduction to this world of entrepreneurship and professional development, and really learning about limiting beliefs and realizing that my feelings aren't real, that my feelings don't have to dictate the actions that I take. And so then learning all of the things, it's never, and this is a lot of the people that I help too, they're like, I know all the things, I read the books, I watched the webinars, but I'm not doing the things I should be doing, or I'm not getting the impact that I feel like I should be. And it's often because that confidence thing is what's missing. And I had to shift the limiting beliefs in order for that confidence to happen, to create the consistency, which then creates more confidence, which then creates more consistency. It's just this beautiful cycle that winds up happening. And I had to start at the bottom. I was working as a temp here because I thought it was smart. I thought I was very smart in, I'm going to double dip my time. I'm going to work as temp job where it takes no brain power, and I'm going to work on my business while I'm there, and nobody's even going to know the difference. And I didn't make a single dollar in that business. And it's like, all right, well, that's a huge issue. So obviously I need to shift gears on what this business looks like. And the reality was that I wasn't really stepping into the strategy that I was learning because of the confidence sort of break, that obstacle in front of myself.
Is that confidence, I call it the confidence gap.
Ooh, yes.
Is it the gap that, who am I really to be deserving of this type of success?
For a long time it was. Yeah, for a long time it definitely was. And that was a lot of what had to do with me being fetal on the couch. I still had that very, very extreme lack of self-esteem. My weight is something I've struggled with my entire life. And so a lot of that festered into preventing the confidence from I threw myself into work, whether it was a day job or an entrepreneurial thing. I threw myself into that because I knew work is what I was good at. I knew work is the thing that I really thrived. I got the validation. But when it came to my personal life, my relationships suffered, if there were any. My health, I did not take very care of my health at all. So really learning to accept all of the things and realizing that me taking care of myself personally was just as important to my business success as me learning the strategy and as me learning all the things to actually execute.
That's a great reminder, because I think we sometimes think it's just go, go, go. And especially as females, we need the balance. We need to take care of ourselves, because when we're empty, what are we going to put into our business? With that, this show is called Your Yes Life Now.
Yes.
If you had like one tip to leave the listeners with to help them say yes now, not when they're perfect, not when they have the confidence, because we know confidence happens in action, which sucks, but it does. You can't wait for it to happen. What is one thing that you could help them, say yes before they feel they're ready?
If it scares you, but you have butterflies, it's a yes. And getting practice in determining between what's a hell yes and a no. To me, if there's hesitation, it's a no. That even the clothes I put on in the morning anymore, like, I kind of don't want to, it's a no. I don't want that energy of maybe seeping into my day. So if I'm excited to do something, even if there's nerves that come with it, because you know that feeling where it's like this in between, like, I want to, but I'm nervous. That's the hell yes. And it doesn't matter if there's fear that comes with it. Fearlessness, if I may say, is bullshit.
Thank you.
It is bullshit, because there is no such thing as somebody who is truly fearless. It's just your fears look different than mine. And so you appear to me as fearless. But like I said, I still get very nervous when I sing in front of people. I still get nervous when I speak in front of people, even though it doesn't appear that way. It still comes. I still get the adrenaline. So for me to function only when I'm fearless or when I feel fearless, I would never get anything done. So having that recognition of those feelings, really checking in with yourself, okay, what am I really feeling? It's a hell yes or it's a no.
Such great, powerful, usable information. Where can our listeners stay in touch with you and find out more about what you're doing?
Yes, so GinaMolinari.com. I always answer my emails personally, so you can email me from there. And I also am on Facebook quite a bit, so facebook.com/theGinaMo.
We'll have all those links in the show notes. And Gina, thank you so much for the gift of your time,
your
enthusiasm, and helping us remember that our maybes need to be a hell yes.
Thank you.